Hello, everybody. My story continues with this episode. We're already in episode 6 now with the story of how I woke up and got out. Not an easy task. You're so intertwined into this organization. It's like tentacles that have a hold on every little aspect of your life. One of the things that the organization did with us is that we really felt like we had to have food at the proper time from the faithful and discreet slave, which is a scripture in the Bible that we applied to the leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses called the governing body. And we felt like we needed them to disperse spiritual food to us. And really, it is so ingrained to you. And you see that in the text messages that my friends wrote to me too. Who's going to lead us? Who's going to give us food at the proper time? Where are we going to go? And really, if you really think about this, if you have the Bible and you're a believer in the Bible, why do we need extra food at the proper time? Isn't the Bible a pretty good outline already on how to live your life? And if you're a part of other religions, they have their own guidelines on how to live your life. But then I would like to add that there are people who are not believers who also live a good life and try to be good people. So why are we so attached to this belief that we need these human rulers of this organization to feed us food, spiritual food, that really ends up being wrong in the end? They're feeding us food, and then there's beliefs clarified. You need to look at this list of beliefs clarified. The list is endless. And I talked about that in a previous episode because it was just shocking to me to see how often they change doctrine, they change it. Well, how is that even spiritual food? It can't really be the truth if it was a lie at some point. And they also did such a good job attaching the organization to this belief that if you dare to leave, everything bad will happen to you. You are now on Satan's side, and it's terrifying. It really feels like that. You feel like, how am I going to raise my children? What is going to happen? I'm leaving Jehovah's organization. You have this fear. And this is where it helps to read and study and watch things about other high control groups. For me, the Scientology series with Leah Remini was so good, but I also read her book. I highly recommend it. It's called Troublemaker. And it was so funny because Leah Remini describes in one chapter how when she started to leave Scientology and she had the same thing that she was going through, that she was so terrified, she said, a person helped me get through this that I have never even met, that I don't even know. And yet I thought of this person all the time during those nights when I was terrified of going into the world, basically. And that was Nicole Kidman. Because Nicole Kidman left Scientology and she did great afterwards. She was successful. She found love. She had kids. She did great. But according to Scientology standards, if you leave, you should be doing horrible. And so Leah Remini had to keep reminding herself, it's going to be okay. Nicole Kidman is okay, and that helped me in those nights when you're terrified. And, we had moved, which was kind of bittersweet, this moving to another state, because I do think on some level it made breaking up with the organization and my old friends easier. But the other part of it is really we didn't have any kind of system or, real true long friendships that were there in place. And I felt like I have to get out and start making new friendships in the world. And it does make me feel kind of weird sometimes. In the beginning, I felt like, I don't really know. They did such a good job with us in the organization to make us feel like we don't fit in, like we're so separate. And other people sometimes can make you feel the same way. But here's the thing. There's going to be really, really good people out there too who understand you, even if they haven't gone through it, and who are kind. And I definitely had those people. I had several quote unquote worldly people who I told my story to, and they were nothing but loving, kind, and supportive to this day. I love them so much, and I'm very grateful. And you just have to find those people. Yeah, maybe some people don't understand, and maybe some people think that's weird. And maybe I can understand that. Maybe we would be the same way if we hadn't been raised in a cult. But there's always going to be people out there who are kind. So this Leah Remini story really helped me, because she thought Nicole Kidman is fine. And I was like, worldly people are fine. People around me are doing just fine. They have raised wonderful children. Their life is fine. They have peace. We will be fine. Keep reminding yourself of that, because at the end of the day, when you leave, you don't have to be terrified of leaving, because you're choosing freedom, and you get to be free, and you get to raise your kids free. You don't have to have this fear of being disfellowshipped or constantly doing something wrong, or if your pants are too tight, or if you're going to be counseled, or if someone doesn't like your nose ring, or your hair's too bright colored, or you don't have to worry about any of those things. And I think especially with teenagers, I feel like they can now kind of experience to find who they are. My kid wanted to dye his hair blue. Okay, he did it for like a month. It's not that big of a deal. It's not this horrible, horrible thing that they do, because I don't know why the organization does this to kids, with guys, like your hair's too long, and really I feel like it's kind of part of expressing yourself. Like if a guy wants to have longer hair, who cares? Are you telling me you can't worship God with longer hair? Are you saying that God wouldn't accept you if you're male and your hair is long? It doesn't make sense. It's just a control thing. So we choose freedom, and we will get through it, and we can integrate. It might be a process. I think that support groups really help too. There's ex-JW or ex-cult support groups. So if you're having a harder time in the world, like finding connections, do find those groups. It's totally okay. So here we were, and I knew I had to move. I knew I had to move and leave my area. It was like too many witnesses around me, too much stress. And I said, I think we need to sell this house. It wasn't even just selling the house, though. It was during a time where there was not a lot of housing available. Plus, my budget was pretty low. So what are we really going to find? Like, we have a house here that we were able to afford, but is there really anything else? So we start the process of looking. We listed our house, and we did it like a Band-Aid. We listed it, and we did have a buyer with a second showing. We found a buyer, but it's terrifying when you have kids and you don't know where to live and you haven't found anything. And there was one place that was a 2-bedroom, I think, and I thought, well, we'll just have to make it work for a while just because to get out of here. But you're putting your kids through a lot too, moving, and then it's not an ideal place. So you're really going to put yourself up to moving again soon. And we were a little bit in a frenzy. And so then I had an idea. And this story is kind of wild too. So when we had moved to this house, we had a neighbor house, a neighbor lady from where we used to live with Troy, and she had to go to a memory care facility, and she truly loved her little doggy above all. She loved her doggy. And we were really familiar with the doggy and with the neighbor lady. Actually, I would say we kind of had it was like a return visit. We would visit her, but we would also visit her because we liked her and we liked the dog, and my kiddos would want to go and visit the dog. Well, when this lady went to memory care, we offered to take care of this dog, adopt the doggy, because we liked the doggy. And the people that were her power of attorneys. They were like, oh, that would be so wonderful. Okay, you guys can take the dog. And this was like, now it's just like during the waking up process, I would say. So we had adopted the doggy. And I also think that it helped adopting the doggy because there was so much loss around us with losing friends and family members, that the doggy that they already knew was like a constant and a little bit of a distraction. And they just loved this doggy. They would cuddle and they would play. It was adorable. It was just a really good thing. And the sweet lady, she was 94 at this point. She passed away in memory care. And her house was listed on the market. And her house was like kitty corner from our old house in the old neighborhood where all the kids' friends were, and where, you know, where we were familiar with it. And it was a very nice neighborhood for kids. The school was nearby and everything. And so that was kind of like the only house that was listed at the time. But we couldn't even afford it. And one morning I was driving around with my kiddo, and he's like, I really wish we could be back in this neighborhood. I loved living here. And I thought, you know what? We just listed the house. We can't find anything else. We should just try to put an offer on this house. And so I call my mortgage guy and I'm like, what's the max I can get for a mortgage? I mean, I'm a single mom here, so it's not going to be really that great, you know, but what's the max I can get? So he tells me a price. And I'm like, okay. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this offer. I'm just going to offer this amount, the max that I can get. I'm just going to offer it for this house. And I didn't know what was going to happen. It was kind of a risk. And some people feel like that's offending too when you make an offer so far under listing price, you know, a lot under listing price. And my realtor was kind of like, I don't know if this is like ethical to do that because that's a lot of money that they would lose, you know. And I'm like, I know, but I feel like we could try, you know, so just try. And so she calls and puts the offer in. And I'm just like, oh, this would be so wonderful if we could get that house. And the realtor calls us back and she says, you got to sit down for this. Like, I can't even believe it. But they said yes to the offer. They accepted the offer because they want the dog to be back in its old home. Oh, and they really wanted to help us. Like, this little lady, she loved the kids. She loved the kids. So she loved the kids and she loved the dog. And she was helping both. She was helping her dog and the kids. And I just couldn't even believe it. I mean, we were doing a happy dance like no other. And my mom, she still was, you know, having friendships with some J-dubs because, like I said, it's kind of hard to break up. So you're trying to like weasel your way out of it, so to speak. And she told the one sister, like, we got this house, it's so much better. And the sister said that was from Jehovah. And my mom's like, oh, thinking, yeah, but except we're like leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses right now. So, but wow, what a sign. Like, what a sign that not everything bad is going to happen to you. that worldly people aren't that bad. That worldly people might even have compassion and kindness. And it was so wonderful. So actually, we had like sold the house that we just moved to with a little bit of extra money where I could afford to get movers. So I was able to have movers move the furniture and stuff. No more carrying washer and dryer and stuff. And then the people, they let us already bring things into the house before we closed. So every time I drove my kids to school, I was able to drop off things. So our move was, I don't even remember it. It was so easy because over the span of a month, we had already brought everything over with our trips. We were now in proximity to the school again where the kids could walk to school again. I mean, it was just the best thing. We had a yard for the dog. We had, I mean, I cannot even tell you, I was like over the moon excited. It was so thrilling and like your whole body is excited. I mean, how does this even happen? So happy. And I really felt like, you know what? Jehovah did help me, but it wasn't like the Jehovah's Witness belief. It was just me leaving the organization. I felt like, well, this is like my sign that this was the right thing to do, because I still really started viewing the organization as the apostates. I viewed them as like being wrong and speaking with twisted tongues and everything. And so what a delight, like what an exciting thing to have happened. And it was just really like celebrating freedom. And I was out of the neighborhood, because in this neighborhood, there was no witnesses. I mean, we were really so much freer. We could do things without being watched. I felt like people aren't going to be like stopping by all the time. So that was just like such an encouraging thing to happen. And it was like one of the happiest days. Like, we got this beautiful house, so cute. And then a few years later, that house still helped us out, and I will talk about that in a future episode, how this like little blessing kept on giving, basically. But tomorrow's episode, I want to kind of talk about my dad a little bit. My dad who had woken up and how he woke up, because this is also very important to the story. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.